In the fabled land of Northern California, nestled in the Valley of Sacramento, two friends begin a journey to enlighten the world about their experience living life as a Xennial. But what is a Xennial, you may ask? If you wish to know, then follow them on their adventures.
Welcome to the Xennial Chronicles. This is James.
This is Mike.
And today we're going to be talking about an interesting subject. It's... How do I describe this the right way, Mike? We all listen to music, right?
Yeah, totally.
We all have different ways of listening to music.
Of course.
And as I was thinking about this over the last week, since we first talked about the idea, I feel this is something that we as Xennials get to share mostly with our Gen X counterparts, somewhat with the baby boomers, but I don't think millennials get the same feel about this subject that we do.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I talked to a lot of millennials that still like a lot of albums, and their taste in albums and certain types of music is good. But most of the time, I see that
he just kind of gave it away.
Yeah. Well,
what we're talking about today is we're talking about the art of the album, the music album. People putting out music in the album form, not just singles, not just
do you want to start this from
songs.
The top again?
No, we're good.
No,
we're good. And keep this part in too. Don't delete it out.
You suck,
I want
man.
it to be in there. No, it's good.
I gave it away. We've been talking about this for before we started the podcast,
like an hour and a half,
last hour,
2 hours almost.
Yeah, give or take. So now it's still stuck in my head. So I blurted it out.
It's okay.
What happens?
It's
man?
Okay. But so you've had millennials say that they still like albums as opposed to just.
I'm sure they do. I just don't have the same musical taste as most of them. So when I listen,
well, that's because you have good musical taste.
Well, not necessarily as far as. Okay, not throwing it out at him there.
I'll be the grumpy old man saying that. That's okay. I'll be the grumpy old man saying good musical taste for us, not so much for the millennials all the time.
Yeah.
I'll be grumpy about that. But then again,
everybody. Me myself, I will not be. I will be more of the.
You'll be there in a few years.
Yeah, sure.
What's with all this young people music? I don't understand it. But anyway, so the art of the album is what we're talking about, and the fact that I think we've lived in a magical time where we have so much media at our availability. We've talked multiple times about movies and how those are available to us and have been made available to us, and we've talked a little bit about music before, but this is really about. We live in the time where albums have come about, where music isn't just written on sheets of paper for other people to play. These are the artists recording their stuff and then having it out for us to hear. I mean, like when Mozart composed all of his stuff, the people that were contemporaries living around him got to hear maybe him conducting the orchestra for whatever was happening.
Right.
But then that music went on, was played by other orchestras and other groups and other this and other that.
Right.
What we're getting is the original artist playing and performing their music in a medium that we can consume at our leisure. And that's where, again, we live in this wonderful time of being able to have music. It created this thing we call the album.
Yeah.
And kind of created a way of making that musical art into something different than just a single, orchestral composition.
Well, I kind of take this, now that we're talking about it, it's something that you can find an influence in albums in general. Like the album itself I don't look at the album and think that it is the only way that you can enjoy a collection of songs.
No, it's not the only way.
Well, no. I mean, I have a certain intention behind this.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. The album itself is not necessarily, it wasn't pioneering in the fact that it was a collection of songs that was themed to a specific, that was stuck in a specific theme. You had multiple orchestral performances that happened beforehand, and then you also had musical theater that was doing all this stuff. You had, I mean, not necessarily so much vaudeville, but you definitely had the album does, a lot of musical theater and that kind of stuff.
What the album does, though, is it puts the availability of consuming it into our hands.
Oh, yeah, right.
In the hands of the public,
you could pick up and immediately listen to at any point in time. The band doesn't have to perform the songs for
you.
This is way past when, recorded music as a medium started in what, the 20s, 30s? Well, no, it was started in the 1910s.
Yeah.
In the teens, but it was beforehand, it was, sheet music that was then performed on the street and that kind of stuff.
And many of the first recorded albums were albums of previously written music, basically performed by other people.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until you get into the 1940s or so that you started getting recordings of albums that was original music or originally inspired music. And that's when you really see the kind of the birth of what we modernly think of as the record album.
Yeah.
The album.
Yeah, essentially it was that collection of recorded tunes that didn't require, you know, physical performance of the artist right there. You had all that there. So.
And I think we can really, in my mind, you can kind of classify albums in a few ways. I mean, there's the live album, the true live album.
Yes.
There's pseudo live albums where the band is playing live, but they're not actually at a live venue, and like crowd noise and such is kind of faked and
that's if the case. Back in the day when they first started, when you're looking at like Sun Records and Abbey Road and all that kind of stuff,
was basically filmed or recorded live. It was
recorded live straight. The first Beatles album, Meet the Beatles, was recorded over a course of 14 hours in a single recording day. It was like 10 songs done in 14 hours, multiple takes. And they were all live. Boom. And they took the best performance of each song, and that's what went on the record, went out.
Scary.
It's crazy. Like I haven't seen anybody do that in... I take that back. You have certain single songs that are done, and you book recording sessions, and you can do that if the caliber of the musicians are high enough.
Interestingly, I'm not necessarily commenting on the caliber of the musicians.
Yeah.
That just seems like something that Dave Grohl would do with the Foo Fighters, just for the hell of it.
You know what? Actually, he did one by himself.
Yeah, well, I know he did the first. I know he recorded the first album of the.
Well, he recorded his own. He actually has one. I wanted to mention it. I have a list here, and it's not written down, but I'm going to mention it because that works its way into the theme here.
Okay, we'll get to that one later then. So. Again, we have live albums. We have kind of the pseudo live albums. We have albums that I think are just kind of a collection and conglomeration of songs. In fact, I'm going to throw two out there that we talked about earlier. The Michael Jackson album is Thriller.
Yes.
And what was the other one?
Bad, I think, was one.
Bad. I think both of those albums are great albums, but I think that they are just a conglomeration of songs that are good single individual songs,
right?
But aren't necessarily a thematic album. They just got put together on an album. Many albums I feel are like this. They're just songs that kind of got released. They were written at the same time, released at the same time, but aren't necessarily a thematic whole story in and of their own. And then I think what we have is albums that are a thematic story of their own. Many people will consider them or call them concept albums.
Okay, yeah, the idea of the concept album for sure.
I think there are some that do fall into the concept category, and we're going to discuss many of those. But I think that even thematic albums, there's a difference between just, again, a bunch of hits thrown together and an album that has a theme.
You know, what's really funny is it's once you start getting into a themed album, the line starts to get blurred. Between
theme and concept.
Theme and concept, very much so. I was looking at a lot of favorite albums as I was going through the list and realizing I'm kind of a sucker for concept albums in general myself.
I understand.
I love them.
The
concept album as an art form is fantastic. I love it. But I think that one of the things that I noticed is that it was so much harder to find a themed album that wasn't a concept album, technically speaking, unless I knew specifically that was the case because of like press releases or something, as opposed to an actual concept album.
Well, and that's why I think my original thought was to kind of separate those two, but I came to the same conclusion that you did. That really, if it has any kind of a theme, that's enough of it to be the concept, and it really feels the same as a concept album. Maybe not to the degree that a concept album follows the theme. Maybe it's like, concept light, but it still falls under that same category.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're talking about today is this art of making an album and how really good albums, really good record albums, music recording albums have that theme, have that concept, and many of these very much stand the test of time. And more importantly, I think we may be seeing the death of those. At least it's the start of the death of those.
This is where I think I may disagree. I just haven't heard a lot of stuff more recently, but not for lack of... It is for lack of looking. I haven't looked.
Okay, I get you.
So I just because I'm not looking for them doesn't mean they don't exist. I just don't know where they are.
True, and any reluctance that you and I may have to hear any music from some newer artists may prevent us from finding some albums out there that are thematic.
Well, there has been I don't think that there necessarily was a shift in focus, because I think the shift in focus in music has always been towards the single. Work your butt off in order to get that 1 3-minute hit. That's all it's been.
And then you try to get people to buy the album. The problem is now that with the availability of all of the digital marketplaces to get the singles, you don't need to buy the album anymore, and suddenly songs from an album no longer are important. And I think the downside of that is some of my favorite songs from some of my favorite bands are songs that were never singles, are songs that are right dead in the middle of an album that never got released, never got any information,
B-sides,
never got nothing from it. And not even B-sides, not even the B-sides of singles, but just stuff that's hidden on the album that are just amazing songs.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But, and I mean, we can talk from an album that has, how many singles came off of the Black Album for Metallica?
Let's see. I know there were the 2 leads, so there's 3 lead singles at least. So there was Enter Sandman, which was their debut single, and then Sad But True.
Yeah.
And those 2 are like the most, like those, that's like their friggin' Freebird at this point.
Unforgiven.
Wherever I May That was roam. Another one. Was that a single? Because I was thinking Nothing Else Matters.
Let's just go with the fact that each one that has a video, which Wherever I May Roam and Nothing Else Matters, they all have videos. They all have music videos.
The Wherever I May Roam video.
Really? It's just a concert compilation.
I mean, I've seen
video.
Unforgiven because they were doing that in a series. I was surprised at 3. I don't think I ever saw a video for Unforgiven 3.
There was never a video for Unforgiven 3.
Wow.
But I actually have a DVD that has Metallica's music videos all the way up to the Saint Anger album.
Cool. Oh, the video collection. I remember that.
Have that. I'll bring it so that you can see it at some point or another.
Yeah.
But my favorite song off of that album, other than Nothing Else Matters, has to be because it was the song that was played at my wedding when my wife and I had our first dance. And yes, the original Metallica version, not the other 20 different versions that you can find of it that sound more melodic. We actually had the original Metallica version because we're hardcore like that. But my other favorite song off of there is My Friend of Misery.
Oh, that's a good one too.
I love that song. The bass line in that song is it's a simple bass line, but it's just amazing and haunting.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's a song that most people don't know off the album unless you really are getting deep into the album. And I listened to that album so many times that it just kind of, that song stuck in my head in fact, I can pick a song off of every single Metallica album that's not a normally played song. That's one of my favorite songs off the album because that specific song just stuck with me.
Cool, man. No, that's a really good song.
And I feel where we're losing the art of the album is people aren't necessarily ingesting the media in the way of albums anymore. They're not listening to it that way. I think CDs started it because remember back when you had cassettes, man, if you weren't if you wanted to skip songs, you had to fast forward and rewind between songs with the cassettes. So you just listened to one side of the cassette and then the other side of the cassette. CDs is when you started being able to pick and choose the songs you wanted to listen to.
Do you think that's where it started becoming more? Because you had your singles that you could sell too. Right?
Okay, singles were great, but then you bought the whole album and you listened to both sides of the whole album.
Right.
When it came to CD, you got to pick and choose the individual songs. So you'd find songs like. Again, I hate having to reference Metallica again, but obviously it's my favorite band, so it's hard not to. The CD that first introduced me into Metallica was Load.
Okay.
And at the time, I only listened to track number 4, track number 5, track number 6.
Cool.
Which are? Until It Sleeps, King Nothing.
I was going to say, I don't know. You didn't tell me that I had to know track order, James.
Until It Sleeps, King Nothing, and Hero of the Day.
Cool.
And then one day,
all of them are good.
One day I let it. I instead of going back to track 4 after Hero of the Day was over, I let it play into track 7, Bleeding Me.
That's a good one too. I actually kind of like those. The stuff from the Load sessions I do like.
The thing that happened was when I heard Bleeding Me, it opened a whole new door for me, and that's what made me a Metallica fan. Was listening beyond that. Then I listened to the whole album. And I was familiar with the back catalog.
So you were introduced to Metallica from the Load album?
I became a fan. I had known Metallica before that. I had a lot of friends that listened to it regularly. A lot of friends, actually almost every friend I had growing up was into heavy metal music, and I was not at that point in time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Huge fans. Heck, I remember looking at original actual record, real records, vinyl records of the Metallica albums that one of my friends' dad had.
Cool.
And we'd be listening to them on vinyl. And he was into, to comment on your shirt, he was into Judas Priest.
Nice.
He was into Megadeth. He was into... what's the other one?
So he was a straight up
Bruce Dickinson's band.
Maiden.
Yes, he was a huge Maiden fan.
Oh yeah, so he was a straight up metalhead.
Oh,
right on.
totally metalhead. I listened to it when I was at his house, but it wasn't my style of music. Load is what made me become a Metallica fan, and then I went through the whole back catalog and bought everything, consumed it all, whatever.
Yeah.
Point being, if I hadn't listened past that one song, it probably never would have happened.
Cool.
And that's where I think, like I said, that's where, to me, it started, is that ability in CDs to pick it out. But anyway, to get back to the point here, we're talking about the art of the album.
Yeah.
During my research, and I did a bunch of research, it was very hard to really get a lot of information about recording albums and where they kind of started.
Yeah.
But I have found where there's been some agreement on what is the first real kind of thematic concept album.
Okay.
1940.
Really?
Woody Guthrie.
Wow.
Dust Bowl Ballads. And this is this
really okay. I gotta go back. The fact that it's
original,
Woody Guthrie is a surprise and a half.
Well, this is a bunch of original semi-autobiographical songs.
Yeah,
about obviously the Dust Bowl, the Great Depression, all the people coming out from the Midwest to the West during
you got
that
any
Great
singles
Depression.
On that?
I don't have any single information.
Is that the one that's got This Land Is Your Land on it?
It may. It's humanly possible.
Woody Guthrie Dust Bowl singles, right? Here, you keep going.
Ballads.
Dust Bowl Ballads. You keep going. I'm gonna look that up.
Okay, go ahead and look that up. That would be funny if that's what's on there, huh?
Yeah,
that would be hilarious. Anyway, that's considered kind of the first real thematic album put out where everything kind of fits all together.
Okay.
Then you have somebody who, interestingly, was a pioneer of kind of theming their albums. Now, admittedly, most of the stuff that he recorded on these 3 or 4 albums that I found that kind of are used as the example of his thematic albums were written by other people.
Whoa.
Is it on there?
No.
Oh, okay.
But there's a few song titles that really jump out at me.
Okay.
One's called Dust Can't Kill Me, and when I say can't, CAIN apostrophe T, apostrophe, blah, blah, blah. Dust Can't Kill Me, and then there is also, get this, and I thought this was cool. There's 2 songs, Tom Joad Part 1 and Part 2. So this is 1940.
So this is the start of the Tom Joad thing, which is then Bruce Springsteen, right?
It must have been, Springsteen, and then covered by Rage Against the Machine. So I gotta look up this. I gotta look this stuff up. That's insane.
I just found something for Mike to do more research on.
Oh, dude, I'm totally looking this up. And Woody Guthrie is awesome.
I'm glad I didn't even tell you about this beforehand. This is a nice surprise.
Dude, that is cool. Dust Pneumonia Blues.
Nice. See, and
that's a good name.
So you see the concept based in this.
Oh yes, dude. The name of the songs is Dust Bowl Blues, Blowing Down This Road, Dust Can't Kill Me, Tom Joad Part 1 and 2, The Great Dust Storm, Dusty Old Dust, Dust Bowl Refugee, Dust Pneumonia Blues. It literally has. It is a themed album. Yeah. I've never heard of this album. I've got to look it up.
Well, and this is considered to be.
I'm listening to this when we're done. This
is considered to be one of the first real thematic albums. And then this guy that we know as a singer, a crooner, put out 3 albums. One's called The Voice Of, then In the Wee Small Hours, and then Sings for Only the Lonely.
The Wee Small Hours.
This would be Mr. Frank Sinatra.
I was going to say, was it Sinatra?
Yes.
I wanted to say Pat Boone.
No, this is Sinatra.
Just for a joke.
And these 3 albums, one of them came out, first one came out in 46. That's The Voice of Frank Sinatra.
Okay.
Then 55 for In the Wee Small Hours, and 58 for Frank Sinatra Sings for Only the Lonely.
Cool.
These are all stuff that was pre-written by other people, previously recorded by other people, but then this is Sinatra's version of it.
Yeah, but they're themed songs. It's a covers album, together. But they're specific. That's cool.
And it wouldn't be considered a covers album at that point.
Right.
It would have been considered Frank Sinatra singing these songs. It was a different world back then. But anyway, Then you get into the 1960s.
Okay.
And this is where, now, while these albums were all themed, the Woody Guthrie album was themed, these Frank Sinatra albums were themed.
Okay.
The 1960s is where the idea of the more concept theme album, where that starts to become even more identified, really comes out.
Right.
And there is one outlier in 1953
Really?
that is considered a little bit of a concept album because all of the songs kind of work together. And in fact, they put out what is considered even more of a themed concept album in 66, the same band. So in 1953, an album called Little Deuce Coupe.
Really?
By the Beach Boys. But if you think about it...
Do you consider is it a concept or concept themed, or is it just thematic?
It's more of a theme. It's thematic in the sense that it was about the car and surf culture of Southern California at the time. So it has a theme, but they really get into more of a thematic concept album in 66 when they come out with Pet Sounds.
Yes.
Now, what's interesting about that, we were having a little bit of a Beach Boys Beatles discussion beforehand.
Yeah, and I think that this is the part where I think this is the part where we need to start mentioning certain specific,
like
interestingly, some intertwining between friendly competition. I would say.
What's interesting is you were talking about Pet Sounds and what may have been the kind of response at the same time as Pet Sounds.
Yeah,
Pet Sounds may have been a response to another album you had mentioned. It came out in 65.
65. Revolver?
No, Revolver was 66, which was a contemporary with Pet Sounds, and
it wasn't Sgt. Pepper. Sgt. Pepper wasn't 65.
Sgt. Pepper was 67.
Okay.
Which Sgt. Pepper and Revolver are almost...
Rubber Soul.
Rubber Soul came out in 65.
Okay, we're all talking about
Beatles albums.
Yeah, anybody doesn't know. We're talking about Beatles albums. So
if anybody doesn't know, educate yourself. Beatles albums.
Right, exactly. It says the guy who's not a Beatles guy.
Even me, who's not a Beatles fan, I know Rubber Soul, I know Revolver, I know Sgt. Pepper's.
Yeah, that's just stuff that's kind of like ingrained in your head as
the
you
White
grow
Album,
up.
These are things that you should know if you know music.
Yeah, it's something that whether or not you're a fan, you should be introduced to, because these guys introduced a large amount of the modern recording techniques. I mean, these guys are Les Paul inventive, and if you don't know who Les Paul is, he's way more than a dude that built a guitar.
Oh no, he did far more than that.
Guy was insane. He actually invented one of the things he invented was multi-track recording and why can't I think of the term, and punching. He invented punching, essentially, which is punching a recording on top of another recording.
So it's not hitting people.
Bouncing. No, he did not invent punching as in hitting people.
Because I'm pretty sure that was invented a long time ago.
Quick mention: How High the Moon is a single by Les Paul and his wife Mary Ford at the time.
Okay.
Les Paul and Mary Ford. It is one of the first recordings. It is essentially like a jazz, like a hoppy kind of jazz number, except Mary Ford is singing her own harmonies. And we're talking like it's got 7 or 8 layers of Mary Ford singing on top.
Nice.
And it came out in the 30s.
Nice.
But one of the things that Les Paul did was he was one of the first people to do what's called punching, which is record a sound on top of another sound. And it's the first known single that had that technique applied to it.
So it's the same kind of technique or a similar kind of technique that they would have used for all of the like gazillion tracks that they recorded for Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, yes. Yeah. You're talking like layering upon layering or that kind of stuff? Yes, exactly. Okay. That's how they were doing it. So they were running the... that's what he did was he's like, well, if I take one tape machine and I line it and wire it out and then I wire it over this other tape machine, I can record something over here and then record it over there. And while it's playing, I'll record on this one and then we'll flip them back and forth. And he was doing that. This is the groundwork. That was the foundation. That's the concrete foundation for everything the Beatles did. Everything, basically every other recording artist at this point did. And this is it's a bit of a squirrel on this conversation, but that's why the Beatles were able to come up with this type of setup. This like Sgt. Pepper, Rubber Soul, all of that stuff, that multi-layered. Yeah, the Beach Boys specifically. Actually, if you want to know what that was all on 4-track tape. That's 4 tracks insane. Of tape. There is 1 track per channel. You got stereo as 2 channels, right?
That's
technically speaking. I know. Freaks you out for a minute. So there's 4 total tracks of tape. It was get all the instrumental musicians in a room, pre-mix them, have them play, record it to 2 tracks, 1 stereo track, left side, right side. So you're hearing a live performance of musicians. Then after the guys were out on tour, the Beach Boys were out on tour doing their thing, he teaches the vocal harmonies to them, and they layer more track 3, all of the vocals, harmonies and lead vocals on 1 track, and then they did it again. And that's that thick, big, open vocal track you get.
Just out of curiosity, have you ever recorded personally on a 4-track recorder?
Yes, I had a 4-track cassette recorder. I never did anything like this. I didn't understand how it worked.
I actually recorded on a 4-track recorder for 2 songs.
Nice.
2 songs recorded on a 4-track recorder.
I've got some old 4-track demos.
Here's the deal, though. It was a drum track, which was literally a single mic for the drums.
Yep.
Single mic drum track, a bass track, a guitar track, and a single vocal track.
Yep.
That's all that we recorded.
That's all you had to think of. Now, here's the cool thing: is if you know what you're doing.
Oh my God!
If you know what you're doing with bouncing, what people do at home, or what they used to do at home. My parents used to do this, and that's where I kind of got the idea of knowing how to use this stuff.
Yeah.
They would record drum machine, then they would record bass, then they'd record guitar. They'd have those 3. They'd put them in place where they want to do them, and then you'd bounce them to the 4th empty track. So now all 3 of them are on 1 track. Now you have 3 separate tracks on the tape. What do? Vocals now.
Oh, okay.
Lead vocal, backup vocal, couple of those. Okay, take those 3 to like 1 lead vocal, maybe a second, like a backup vocal, and then take those 3 and bounce them to the last empty track, and now you have 3 more tracks.
Wow.
That's what people would do with layering, but you lose quality every time.
Of course you do. Now here's the fun part. We can do all of this now.
Yeah. You just do it with a computer.
With computers and everything.
Stuff, you never lose anything.
And you can have hundreds of tracks on a single song.
Yeah. As far as the main quality of the whole thing, it's not really lost. Like you don't...
it's just insane.
People can argue the theory all day long, but essentially what it is the original perceived quality of what you were recording at the beginning still stays there.
Yeah, because it's in a digital setup.
Yeah, it's a digital setup. You have all of that can be, MP3s, blah blah blah. But let's get out of that.
Let's go back to this.
But yeah, that's essentially this is where Sgt. Pepper and Rubber Soul and those albums.
These are considered by many people. Pet Sounds, Rubber Soul, Revolver, Sgt. Pepper. These are benchmark albums in rock music.
Yes.
That first of all cause a whole bunch of controversy with people. They cause arguments. They cause fights. People being fans of one band, not fans of another. I can say, being the anti kind of Beatles person that I am, I constantly am at war with people. And the only album I have to come to my defense during the 60s, during that time, is Pet Sounds, because that's kind of I feel anyway, the Beach Boys' penultimate album.
Yeah.
And in many ways it is. It's the culmination of their sound. And the Beatles get like 4 albums that's the culmination of their sound. So it's kind of hard to argue with that.
Yeah. I mean, well, and the funny part is you take into account that the Beatles did everything from Meet the Beatles, which is the doo-woppy, like Love Me Doing, that
which kind of stuff. Which is the stuff that I actually like the most of the Beatles.
What's really funny is they went from that all the way down to the Abbey Road EP.
Yeah.
In a 10-year span.
No, I understand the amount of change, and I understand, most importantly, I understand the change on the music industry that they created. I'm just not a fan. I mean, I'm just not a fan of the music. The only thing of the later music that I like is literally While My Guitar Gently Weeps. And I don't even know.
Song.
I mean, that's a Harrison song.
Yeah.
He's not playing the solo, but it's a Harrison song.
Well, I mean, there's a lot. Some of my favorites were essentially the Harrison song. Here Comes the Sun. That's a Harrison song.
Interestingly, written in the backyard of the person who plays the solo on While My Guitar Gently Weeps.
Yes. While
they were waking up from drinking the night before.
Well,
drugs and other things.
And many other things. Well, that's where, you know the song Layla by
yeah, that's is it Harrison? It's
Harrison's wife. Yeah.
And of course, it's Eric Clapton. If anybody doesn't know, that plays the solo on While My
If anybody wants to know the oh my goodness, that's another one I'll throw out there right now, just to start on the list.
Okay.
That I didn't have on this list.
Yes.
If anybody wants to know one of the penultimate themed albums, especially about people cheating on each other, Fleetwood Mac's Rumors.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that one either.
Yeah,
That's
buddy.
an amazing album.
It's a great album. It is the most, like, it is a documentary of the most tumultuous time a group of 4 people ever had.
Yeah.
4 or 5 people, I think.
More than that. I think it was 5 or 6. It's a big band.
Yeah, it was a
Fleetwood
large
Mac's
band.
got a lot of people in
Dude, like,
There are songs they're playing where they hate each other and they're still singing the songs.
they hate each other and they're all sleeping with everybody else's significant other. It's just insane. Good music, but man.
Well, actually, that's the most interesting thing about it is when you look at it, that album is amazing.
Oh, yeah, it's a great album.
There's so many great songs on that album.
And it is
what
I find really funny about it oh, yeah, they are. But they're so locked in. It's some of the best music
The music is amazing.
Yeah. Insane.
It's crazy, but that does fall under this thematic thing. So
there's our opener, our themed album opener. Is
so we're going to take a break here for a few moments, and when we come back, since we kind of got the ball rolling on this and kind of the start of these with these Beatles albums and with these the one Beach Boys album, and now the mention of Fleetwood Mac, we're going to go through the second half of this and just talk about. Just throw out various albums that are these themed, these concept albums.
Yeah.
These albums that kind of all work together. And hopefully you'll hear some albums from artists that you may not have thought to listen to. Artists that you may have thought, really? They put out an album that really is thematically all together? I thought they were just a bunch of crap. Even if it's a bunch of crap, it still may thematically all be crap together.
Right?
It's possible. But we'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you. Hey friends, this is Mike from the Xennial Chronicles reminding you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Xencron, spelled Xenchron, to keep up to date on all things TXC. And please check out our official website, theXennialChronicles.com, or if that's too much to type, Xencron.com. Thanks again for listening, and now, back to the show.
And we are back. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do this, man.
Of course, I ask you if you're ready right as you're about to take a sip of coffee.
Yes, I'm totally ready.
It's like he's going in for the drink. Are you ready, sir?
Are you ready? All right, man.
It's like when the waiter comes to you and asks you, "How's your food?" and you have a mouthful of food. You're like, it's fine.
All you can do is thumbs up and almost spit everything out that you've got in your mouth.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we just going with now? I have a laundry list here, man.
I know you have a longer list than that's what she said.
So what is the
So what we're looking at here is
what's our subject matter?
We're looking at, as we discussed in the beginning of this, we're looking at albums that are done by artists that are thematic. They're not just a collection of individual songs.
Yeah.
That were all written at the same time and just kind of put together. Like I said, I use Thriller as an example. Thriller is a great album. It's one of the best-selling, if not the best-selling album of all time.
Yes.
But it is just kind of a collection of individual songs put together. There's no real theme. I mean, when you have a song like Thriller, so are all the songs going to be like horror-related? No, they're all just pop songs.
Yeah.
Good pop songs.
Yes.
But pop songs.
Okay.
What we're looking at here is albums that really truly define the art of making an album where the album is a complete cohesive piece of art by itself.
Right.
It's not just individual singles. This album should be consumed as an album.
Okay, so you're talking you have to consider the possibility that instead of basically, you should be able to listen to this thing from beginning to end and either understand the cohesive theme in that, maybe it is concept, or it doesn't necessarily have to be.
Or you can see how it all kind of fits together.
Right.
It all just kind of works together.
Okay. So, all right. Are you starting or am I starting?
I'm gonna throw out one that I didn't get in the first half that happened in 1969.
Yes.
It was going to be another part of my examples of the start of this.
Okay.
But I think the Beatles and the Beach Boys, ones we mentioned, kind of started it off real good.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw out The Who's Tommy.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is a good album.
I didn't think of that one before.
And then I don't know if we have any Kinks fans that listen.
The Kinks. Man, I missed on that one
Face to Face.
All right.
So that was in 66.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm going to kind of let you go and I'll throw in interjections or since you have the big list on this one, I'll throw in my interjections, I'll throw in my comments. Let's see where you go and if something pops up to me while that's happening.
Yeah. Okay. So my list for the most part is relatively. I'm kind of a bit of a prog nerd, not too crazy, but especially on the older classic stuff.
Prog nerd being prog rock nerd.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I'm into prog rock. I'm into metal. I'm into that kind of stuff. And
I
say that in general without being like, I'm not big into most 80s metal.
Well, and in the research, we discussed the fact that we found that this idea of thematic concept albums really, really seems more attuned to rock music, as opposed to pop and hip hop. We did discuss
and
that there was
looking for that too.
Well,
really did. I just
we discussed that there was one hip hop artist that did make an album that was a kind of thematic album, but that's all we're going to say is that there was a hip hop artist. We don't talk about that hip hop artist. Most people don't talk about him or listen to his music anymore because of recent events. That should be enough if you are following the pulse of the news to let you know who that person is.
Yeah.
And maybe if you, for some reason or another, want to find out about any thematic albums that person may have done, you can look it up on your own. We are not going to counsel you to or suggest it to you because we do not want to be associated with that artist. Okay. So it seems to be more of a rock metal thing. So being a prog rock fan, being a metal fan, this seems to be up your alley.
Okay, so
go.
Yeah, all right. So there's a couple of them that are just really, really interesting in general. I'll spit some off real quick.
Please do.
King Crimson's In the Court of the Crimson King.
Wow, that is
deep. That is deep prog. That is practical psychedelic. Go nuts. Sit back and have a drink, or
King Crimson
partake in other recreational activities.
Now, King Crimson
throw a pair of headphones on and just let it take you on a ride.
Now, King Crimson is a European act, correct?
Yes, they're
okay. For anybody that is not familiar and doesn't have the deep cut stuff, they're
out of Britain.
There is actually a King Crimson song on what is it? Is it the Clerks 2 soundtrack? Yes, I believe it's the Clerks 2 soundtrack.
Oh, really? Which one is it?
Yes. They're listening to it outside of the drive-thru at the movies.
Really?
Jay and Silent Bob are.
Really?
Yeah, before they actually it's before the dance happens between Dante and Becca. They're listening to a King Crimson song. I'll show you the clip
you sure
later.
that was King Crimson or King Diamond?
Oh, you're right.
That's King Diamond.
I'm wrong. It's King Diamond.
Yeah, because they
not
constantly
King Crimson.
reference that song.
My bad.
Yeah, that was King Diamond. But no, yeah, King Crimson's very, very different. They're progressive rock to the nth power. All right. So in that theme, there are a few other more progressive bands. Obviously, and that Court of the Crimson King is very well themed, but not very much I don't necessarily consider it a concept album.
But it has a good theme to it.
But it has a really good theme to it. That being said, Dark Side of the Moon or anything by Pink Floyd.
Dark Side and The Wall especially are really thematic. I mean,
the Wall is definitely, that's a rock opera, dude.
To the point that
that's like Tommy. Wall, Tommy's a rock opera.
Very much so. And to the point that both of those are, when they're performed in concert, they're performed in their entirety as the whole set piece.
Yes.
And of course, Dark Side has its famous connection to The Wizard of Oz.
Yes, indeed. All right. That being said, there's other ones as well. I'll spit off a couple of the prog ones to kind of get it out the way. Rush,
of course,
2112,
of course,
is a concept album in general. The first side is all just one song, and then there's a collection of a few of them. But the whole thing, the theme, the artwork, the photography, everything that was done with it. Moving Pictures is another one by Rush. That is like their top penultimate album. It's the one with Tom Sawyer on it. That's the one that everybody tends to
Tom Sawyer
reference.
is probably the only Rush song that most people know.
Yeah. All the ones before 2112 at that point, I mean, they didn't really have a lot that they were doing. I think Farewell to Kings was afterwards, so I thought 2112 was like their fourth album they made. But the first one with the more rock and roll type one, and then Fly By Night, which was where they started getting a little bit more proggy. Those ones were still collections of songs, but they were very, very well done in general, but not as much a cohesive theme.
Just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
In your van, is it all Rush all the time?
All Rush all the time.
Just making sure.
Yep. I don't think I even own. Nope, I don't own a van. We'll leave it to the Honda.
Okay. In the Honda, it's all Rush all the time?
All Rush all the time. Okay, so another one for you. Nod of the hat on Dream Theater. I don't really have any albums from them, but they are a more recent act. that still does progressive.
And yeah, the kind of the way Dream Theater works is that
those
every
guys play
album,
Dark Side of the Moon live.
Well, every album that they do is basically the entire thing is a whole concept. It's basically one song that they break into little pieces.
Yeah.
That's kind of how they write their stuff.
Another one of my
crazy
personal favorite artists that's really good at that. They're a progressive, in general, artist. Started blues with a flute and then kept going from there. Jethro Tull. The Aqualung album is one of the best themed albums that is technically not a concept album to ever come out.
Okay.
Also, but their concept album they did.
You don't have like rage hate for Jethro Tull?
No, why?
Because they got the Grammy when Metallica should have got it?
No, that's not their fault. Even they called it out as a joke. Okay. They're like, we don't even know why we're up here, but okay, thanks. It's not like they could give their award to Metallica after they were given it.
I guess I get it, and there's no metal version of.
I like how they went up there. They're like, we're a metal band now. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I don't. Anyway.
So no rage hate for Jethro Tull. Wasn't their fault. I blame the Academy. And then they had another one that they did afterwards as well. Thick as a Brick. Now that is a concept album that is. It is the end of all concept albums. Thick as a Brick is a song that is 45 minutes long and takes space on both sides of the entire LP.
That's insanity.
It is. And they're basically, here's what it was. Thick as a Brick was a reply to Aqualung. Much in the same way that the Beatles song Come Together was a response to the news media in general, trying to find music media they became addicted to trying to find the meaning of Beatles songs all over the place. So Come Together was a song that was a response to that, whereas they just literally created a bunch of phrases of random nonsense and threw them into a song that happened to sound good.
Which is funny because that's one of the most often covered Beatles songs.
Yes.
I mean, trying to think, Aerosmith has done a cover of it.
Yep.
Michael Jackson has done a cover of it.
Yep.
Dude,
Imagine Dragons, I think, just recently did it.
Imagine Dragons
is that them?
May have done it.
Is that who it was?
I don't know.
Godsmack just covered it.
That's the one I was thinking of. Godsmack. Yeah. Godsmack just covered it.
Godsmack just covered it. Like, there's a bunch of people have covered it.
That version is terrible, by the way.
I think it was Imagine Dragons that did it. I don't know. Mistaken on the artist right now. One of the more modern artists did it as well as Godsmack.
The Godsmack version is one of the most terrible versions I've ever heard. I mean, I like a lot of Godsmack stuff, but no.
I think my favorite version of it, I'll have to show you it. It's called Pride and Glory. It's actually one of Zakk Wylde's first projects before he started Black Label Society.
Who's singing?
Zakk.
Okay.
And you would be very surprised how well he can sing.
Well, I mean, I've heard a couple of different songs of him singing, and there are some that I had no idea it was him. There are others I'm like, yep, that's him. But
no, you could tell it's him, but you could tell that he's got range like a son of a gun. You'd never figure. Oh yeah, I'll have to play it for you after we're done. Okay, so looking at, I think that would bring me to it. I've got another one as well. Well, there's a few of them. Me as a Zeppelin fan. Houses of the Holy and Physical Graffiti.
Yeah,
both of those are great.
Because what's funny is most people who are not Zeppelin fans, they try to pander to Zeppelin fans.
Yes,
by saying that they have one Zeppelin album, and what Zeppelin album is that?
They've probably got 4.
Always have 4.
Yeah,
the only
good songs.
The only Zeppelin album I've ever owned was 4. And why did I own that album?
Stairway.
That's the only reason.
That's the only reason why. Nobody ever pays attention to anything on top of that, but Physical Graffiti is actually one of my favorite albums by them. I
just thought of one. Oh.
What, a Zeppelin album or an album in general?
No, something same rough era and country.
Cool.
But different band.
Cool. Let's see here.
Although technically almost all of their albums could be considered this way, but I would say...
Do you want me to go through kind of like my timeline, what I've got?
Sure, if you got a timeline.
Okay, I have my list of albums. I know when they came out. So let's see. Look at... We started with... we stopped at Zeppelin. David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars.
Yeah.
Fantastic album, presented as an album. It has a story, a theme behind it.
Complete.
Absolutely complete.
They did a freaking movie with it.
Yeah, totally.
Would you consider Night at the Opera?
Oh, Queen?
Yeah, see, that's the one I just had that popped in my head.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Almost all of their albums could be considered kind of thematic in concept, but more so Night at the Opera than anything else.
What was... there was another one, News of the World or something like that. Or why can't I
don't remember.
I can't remember. It's the one with the big robot on the front of it.
Okay. I think I know what you're talking about.
I think it was that one. I don't know. We'll probably have to like post it afterwards. I can't think of the name of it. Okay. So, and there was this time during the 80s where rock was just like, there wasn't
singles.
Okay, so there weren't. Yeah. The 80s was singles oriented. The 80s was when rock music in general was extremely homogenized. Even your rock or your metal bands. I didn't see anything that was themed that really felt like art to me.
Actually, what's
it just
funny
felt
about
more
that,
like commercialism than anything.
What's funny about that, especially in the late 80s, when you have the Sunset Strip bands start coming up, the hair metal bands and all these various ones, I still to this day have to ask my wife, who is a huge fan of those bands, which song is done by which group. Two groups in specific, I always get confused as to which song is done by which one.
Which two?
Who the two lead singers are, because I get especially the lead singers confused because they're both blondes.
Okay.
And how many men are in the group, because some of them look like women.
Poison and Motley Crue?
Exactly. Those are the two. And I get confused about which songs that they do sometimes, who's in each group. And again, the singers are the hardest one for me. I know there's Vince Neil, and I know I don't even know the other one.
Bret Michaels.
See, that makes me think he's a wrestler. Yes, okay.
You're thinking Shawn Michaels? Yeah.
Those are the two. Those are the two. I'm thinking Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels combined together into one person.
No, way more masculine than Bret Michaels. I will tell you that right now.
Both of them are.
Dude, I've got a bit of a soft spot for Motley Crue. When I hear their stuff, so they were losing their musicianship and all that kind of stuff. Just listening as a musician, it drives me nuts. Poison never fixed anything. Motley Crue at least was able to even when they re-recorded some of their stuff and they got their rights back in 2000.
I tried to, this is the way I try to associate it with those two bands. Again, the lead singers always confuse me. I can't remember which one's in which group.
Right.
I know that Nikki Sixx is in Motley Crue.
Yes.
I know Tommy Lee's in Motley Crue.
Yes.
I know the guitarist is half dead. He's like a zombie.
Mick Mars. No, that's terrible.
That much I know. I know that in Poison, the guitarist is like some blonde dude named CeCe
DeVille.
And he does a lot of drugs, even more than the other people around.
He does, but you know what's crazy?
He did. I don't know if he does anymore.
Back in the day, in the 90s, VH1 had Rock and Roll Jeopardy. Yeah. And there were two people that were the best at their rock trivia. CeCe DeVille and Dave Mustaine dominated the hell out of those.
Mustaine doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But I literally know nobody else in Poison.
No, Bret Michaels and CeCe DeVille, the only ones you remember.
Brett's the
you know what one that always actually gets there's a
and Poison has one of my least favorite songs from that. Actually, two of my least favorite songs from that era.
Warrant. The band Warrant is a dancing kind of on the pop 80s band kind of thing that actually wrote a very well-themed album. I think it's called Uncle Tom's Cabin. Okay. It has Cherry Pie on it, but that's every other song on it is way cooler.
And it's so sad that that's the only thing that they're known for is Cherry Pie.
Because it was the lead single.
But
it was the party rock anthem where the drummer is literally trying to play a cherry pie on his snare drum.
Yeah.
It's just, dude, there's freaking syrup awful. And crap flying all over the place. It was terrible.
But anyway, back to the concepts.
Now, in the I wouldn't necessarily go concept. This is themed albums. So in the 80s, a lot of the time, rock in general, what most labels were trying to do is they were trying to put a stranglehold on the art form of rock music, and they couldn't quite do it. So you had all this commercialized sex rock that came out that always danced with pop. Everybody had the same
edge there.
Yeah, Tiffany and Motley Crue had the same teased hair. You know what I mean? It was just it didn't really work. However, if
you looked at the art on the album, you didn't know for sure if Tiffany looked like a girl. So did all the guys in Motley Crue.
Twisted Sister always confused people.
Dude looks like a lady. You know the origin of that song? It has to do with Motley Crue.
Oh, it was about...
it's actually either Vince Neil or Bret Michaels. One of the two.
I would say most likely it was Vince Neil.
Is the inspiration for that song.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
That's
funny.
The
point. You look at Motley Crue's first album, and you're like, who are these chicks? They're kind of hot, maybe. And they're not
I didn't
chicks.
know that. I didn't know that.
Yes.
Hell of a comeback song for Aerosmith on
Yes.
top of their collab with Run DMC, by the way. It was fantastic.
But anyway, this is what the 80s kind of brought us.
Yeah, that was
the and I think that has to do with the trend of the 80s to begin with. It was the 80s was very much a commercialism time.
Yeah.
It was about sell everything as quickly as possible.
Yes.
We discussed before the rise in the toy sales in the 80s and the toy the TV shows that were basically just half-hour long toy commercials for these things. This was very much about consumerism is good, greed is good. Thank you, Gordon Gekko. Consume all of this as quickly as possible. Let's make the buck as quick as possible.
Yeah.
And there's some that would argue that some of the artistry was lost during that time.
A lot of people do. Well, okay, so I have a counterpoint to that I was trying to get to. There were a lot of bands, especially metal bands, that were in the underground at that time that were writing incredible albums.
Yes.
You had guys like Iron Maiden. You had Judas Priest. One of my favorites leading to it, Iron Maiden, by the way, huge tip of the hat. Killers, Number of the Beast, Somewhere in Time. Those were good albums, especially in comparison to a lot of the stuff that was coming out at the time.
Oh yeah,
huge. But one of my favorites that is constantly overlooked, Holy Diver by Dio.
Okay, I see that.
It's a great album.
It is.
It's a great album. It's got a theme. It's very well put together. Like that's one of those ones that it's one of those ones that put him way the hell out there.
Sadly, it's got a lot of cheese factor to it, but
but
the cheese factor is an important point. But then you can also think about the albums that Ozzy was putting out at that time, and every single one of them were very thematic.
Oh yeah. Those were great too. Like, it's weird. It's like all of that art, even though those people were essentially getting famous, most of it was in the rock and metal oriented crowds.
Yes.
The real concert goers, the ones that would sit and listen to an album with a cup of coffee or a beer, like that kind of stuff. Those are the guys that.
Oh wow! I actually just thought of a hip hop rap style album that fits.
Yes.
Sir Mix-a-Lot Swass.
Really?
Well, you've not heard the entire album.
No.
In fact, when we're done here, there are a few songs off that album I want you to hear.
Okay.
Just to hear. But I think that's an album that it's about his experiences in Seattle.
Yes.
And the kind of the culture there.
Whoa.
And the mixing of culture there. And I think that might almost have a thematic thing to it, especially because there's echoes of things within the album.
That's a surprise. That's cool. I want to check that out for sure.
That's an album most people don't know him for because that's pre Baby Got Back.
Oh,
Swass was his first major release, and in fact, the song Swass, the hook from that song, is used in Pussycat Dolls song.
Oh, cool.
The Don't Ya song.
Really?
Yes, the hook from Swass is changed up and used in Pussycat Dolls. He gets partial writing credit for that.
That's cool.
Yeah, he gets money every time.
He gets co-writing credit?
Yep,
Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
Between that and Baby Got Back, he's sitting good.
Yeah. Okay, so we have that one. Okay, so moving right along going past the 80s, moving into the 90s.
I want to throw out another underground one real quick.
Yes.
And I don't know how you feel about this being a concept thematic album. I feel it is.
Yes.
Especially because it ended up having 2 sequels. Literal sequels that are named the same things and titled number 2, number 3 with additional stuff.
I know what you're talking about.
Go ahead.
GNR, man, The Use Your Illusion.
No, I'm talking
Whoa.
First album in the late 70s, next one in the 90s.
Meatloaf.
Yes, Bat Out of Hell.
Bat Out of Hell. Yeah.
And then Bat Out of Hell 2 in the 90s. And then Bat Out of Hell 3, which came 2000, I don't know exactly, but it was after the 2000s.
Yeah. Dude, all right. Meatloaf's career is proof that musical theater and rock and roll are like hand in hand.
Well, Meatloaf's career are proof that Meatloaf and Elton John actually have basically the same career in that if you find a really good songwriter and a really good performer and pair the two together, you get gold.
Unstoppable, man. Unstoppable stuff. Okay, so moving on into the 90s.
Go ahead.
I would say there's a couple of them. Stuff that turned the community on its head when it came down to listening to rock and moving from direct singles.
A few of these are ones that Mike thinks is going to break my brain or hurt me in some way mentally.
No, not until the later stuff.
Okay, go on then.
Not until the later stuff. But when we get around to the 2000s, that's where that's going to freak you out a little bit.
I know what it is. Go on.
Okay. So the first one that I could think of is Nevermind by Nirvana and In Utero. Those two albums are very, very well put together. And they're not just collections of songs. They actually do have a theme to them that are it's the two of them there's a lot of depression, nihilism, that kind of stuff.
Personal protest because of my personal hate of Nirvana.
Yes, I know.
But I understand your point.
Yeah. Token personal protest. And then moving on from there, I would say, let's see here. What's the stuff that I haven't mentioned? I'll go back to that in a minute. Another one's two other albums, Rage Against the Machine's two albums. Their debut album was very well themed, but it introduced the band in general, so I don't necessarily consider that an album as much as I consider it a collection of songs, even though they are protest music and they are themed in general. So you'd feel the same
also for GNR's Appetite, right? Yeah,
Appetite is his... We are Guns N' Roses. This is who we are. This is what we're about.
Okay.
That's not necessarily an introduction to a band as an album in a themed album is not necessarily where I would go. Like Contraband by Velvet Revolver is not very much a themed album to me. It's a collection of songs that the band was able to write up to that point. Creed's first album, and I'll throw it out there, was not very much an album as much as it was a collection of songs, such as the same as Godsmack's first album and that kind of stuff. Godsmack 4, I consider that themed. Godsmack 1, not so much. You know what I mean?
You consider Creed's album a collection of songs?
Well, yeah, they are songs. As a matter of fact, it's probably the only valid album that I ever thought that I ever liked from them.
Okay, moving right along.
Yeah, hey, look, this is okay. So
I guess personal taste also doesn't.
I was going to say personal taste is.
Yeah,
but look at it. Like it wasn't some that. Go back and listen to that album. No. It is not some collection of commercialized pop rock. It's the only one that wasn't.
I can get what you say from what I remember off that album, but I will not go back and listen to it.
Yeah, I thought that it was. I thought it was a band that had potential that came out with an album that some of the songs and their lyrical content didn't necessarily age well, but their but the idea and the seeing a band develop in its infancy, I think, is a good. That's a good but that's a collection of songs.
Okay.
Not necessarily a album. Now, moving right along,
please.
Rage Against the Machine's two albums, Evil Empire and The Battle of Los Angeles, are definitely themed.
I can see that.
Nod to the Renegades album as well. Technically speaking,
more of a cover album.
It's a covers album, but it doesn't quite hit the theme as what you're talking about with the Sinatra stuff earlier. From there, I would go with. There's two albums, actually, by Limp Bizkit that I really like.
This is interesting.
Not the opening $3 bill. $3 bill had Nookie on it, and I've listened to it before. And I mean, Nookie's a cool single, but aside from that, like, Limp Bizkit's a bit of a guilty pleasure for most people. They like a few singles on it, and when you see it at karaoke, people go nuts anyway. Or when you see a band cover it, because it's so rare that you see it covered.
Yeah.
That people go nuts because it's just like, I love that song. That band's terrible. Fred Durst is a jackass. That's a great song. Like, you get that every time and people go nuts.
Yeah.
That being said, Significant Other is a properly themed album.
Okay.
All of the songs, with the exception of, I think, In Together Now with Method Man, are all specifically themed around relationship issues.
That's the first one. Is the second one Butt Sex Poop Smell?
Oh, you chocolate starfish?
Yeah, is that the second?
No, that's the third album.
Well, is that the second one that you're going to be referencing?
No.
Okay.
Here's the other one. This is a sleeper album that was actually, so it is an anti-label album.
Okay.
Because their label was giving them total crap during the development of the album. So for a short period of time, for like a period, I want to say like 5 years or so, Wes Borland left the band. These guys always were kind of back and forth. Fred Durst and Wes Borland always like butted heads. Yeah. So Wes Borland left the band, and I remember back in like 2002, they actually tried to audition guitarists, and there was crappy stuff with the contract issues and all that kind of stuff that happened. Basically, they came out with one album that was really not great, and then they stopped making music.
Yeah.
And then back in like 2008 or 9, I'm walking into a Best Buy and I see a kiosk. and it's this really weird looking thing, and it looks like a propaganda poster, except with like this Nazi general looking character with a skull, like a skull for a head, and all of these marching troops and this thing. And I was like, what kind of an album is this? Turns out it's a Limp Bizkit album. It's got 7 or 8 tracks on it, and it's maybe at the most like 35 minutes, and it's called The Unquestionable Truth Part 1. And I was really shocked just to take a look at it, because it didn't look like a Limp Bizkit album to me at all. And I picked it up just for the hell of it.
Is this like a Chinese Democracy-esque type story? Or
No. Okay. So what happened was they got Wes Borland back in the band.
Okay.
And essentially the idea behind it was the band, the musicians of the band are fantastic.
Yeah.
John Otto's an incredible drummer. I can't remember the bassist name right now, but he's awesome.
Borland's a good guitarist.
Borland's a great guitar player.
Yeah.
He is one of the best. I consider it the terminology non-educated is not necessarily that he doesn't know how to play guitar, but he's not a formally educated guitar player like most guitar players are.
Yeah.
Or most guitar players are not. Excuse me.
Okay, sorry.
Excuse the terminology. Most guitar players are not formally educated. Wes Borland is really good at using alternate tunings and figuring out cool riffs without having to think of all of the science behind it.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for that. That being said, this album is the band jamming, and then afterwards, Fred comes in and puts his stuff on it, but all of the stuff it is an anti-label themed album.
Interesting. Okay.
And it's great.
I'm going to have to see this at some point.
There's a couple of beats that are written. When you listen to it, it was cut in a studio that definitely sounds like it's cut on tape. It's warm. It's gritty. It's rough sounding. The vocals are recorded into a single, regular handheld vocal mic. I loved the sound of this because it's not
Processed.
Polished. Yeah, it's raw.
Okay.
It's raw Limp Bizkit. It sounds like it's...
Those are words you should not put together.
But it's not processed. It's not. It sounds a lot more $3 bill. It sounds like it was just put together by an angry bunch of dudes in a studio. I don't know. Maybe most angry rock music needs to be made. I really liked that album.
I'm sorry.
And this is just before Fred lost his friggin' mind.
Yeah.
Afterwards, talking about Britney Spears and all that crap.
He did go crazy for a while there.
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
He was trying to do film production and stuff afterwards. But that album's great. And now when they get together, they still play some of those songs from that album.
Okay.
Really good stuff too. But I'll show that to you.
That's one to be linked.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Now that one, like I said, it was like 2008, 2009. A couple of other ones that I want to nod to. Kid Rock's "Devil Without a Cause."
I'm going to agree with that, because if you really listen to that whole album, it really all flows together well.
It does. And there's a ton of singles on that album.
There's like 4 or 5 singles come off that album.
Including
the auto-tuned Mess. Yeah. Which, by the way, I saw them in concert during that time period.
Yeah.
And part of the thing that turned me off of being a Kid Rock fan, other than kind of the white trash kind of demeanor that he was helping promote at the time period, Uncle Cracker sung the majority of that song. The God Knows Why.
He's back and forth doing the response
he does the majority of the song.
Oh, that's funny.
In live, Kid Rock could not keep up with it.
Wow.
Cracker could. He had the vocal chops to keep up with it. Kid Rock couldn't.
Wow.
Live.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I saw them same day I saw Korn, and the second time I saw Metallica play.
I was going to say, this wasn't Ozfest. Oh, this was the Summer Sanitarium tour.
Yes, it was Summer Sanitarium tour, and Korn was freaking amazing.
Yeah, I remember hearing Kid was a little out of he was out of his element. He was really kind of out of control.
Yeah, he was not good during that tour.
So the band, a lot of the band made up for what was going on. That's the rumor anyway.
Yeah, that was my experience. Was he was not really that good a performer that day. But I can see, I listened to that album a lot when it came out. My wife was a huge fan, and that was about the time we met.
Yeah.
So I listened to that album very much, and yeah, it is cohesive. The whole album.
It is. And then on top of that, there's just single
album.
after single after single on that whole thing. I'm still shocked. Like, you look at the list of songs on that album, and it looks like a greatest hits record at this point.
I mean, when that cowboy song comes on, you're listening to that thing.
Oh,
you're singing along, or at least trying to.
Yep. All right. So that aside, we've got, let's see, a little bit more here. Okay. So some other stuff that this is where it gets a little controversial, I would say.
Do you want to have the Metallica talk first or after?
Let's do the Metallica talk first.
Okay. Now, of course, we're big Metallica fans. We use Metallica as kind of at least I use Metallica as kind of a gauge for almost everything musical because they're a band that means so much to me. And when you look at Metallica's discography, I think we're in agreement. First 2 albums, great albums.
Yeah.
Especially, Kill 'Em All is basically just, this is the songs we had, let's put them all together.
We are Metallica, this is our music.
Yeah, I mean, they even have a song that says that.
Yeah.
Because we're Metallica.
Oh, yeah, they do.
On that album.
Cool. That's Whiplash, right?
Yes, that is Whiplash. No, I think there's one more song after Whiplash. Yeah, there is one more song after Whiplash.
Yeah, you're right. Now I'm thinking of the end of it and I can't. Metal Militia.
No, you're right. Metal Militia may be at the end, but there's another song before that then. Doesn't Seek and Destroy come after Whiplash?
You're right. It's Seek and Destroy and then Metal Militia.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Son of a gun.
Seek and Destroy now is what they use for the end of their concerts, typically. And
makes sense to me.
Funny enough, I have 2 turtles named Seek and Destroy.
Oh, that's cute.
One named Seek, one named Destroy.
That's cute.
Destroy is the big one. He's huge.
Nice.
But anyway, so that album's kind of just a conglomeration of songs. Ride the Lightning, we discussed earlier, is hey, we're starting to learn how to make an album. This is how you put an album together.
Right.
And then you get Master of Puppets, which is considered by most people to be the best Metallica album ever made.
Absolutely.
I think it's one of the better albums ever made.
Yeah, I mean, the 2 of us have had this conversation before.
Yeah. It has a completeness to it, and that's what I think the true art of making an album is. Everything in the album sounds like it all fits together.
Yes,
it fills a theme, and you want to listen to it beginning to end.
Yep.
And Justice for All, which is actually one of my least favorite Metallica albums, I still feel that is a thematic album, and it was them dealing with the death of their bassist.
Yes.
The guy who was kind of the main inspiration behind Master of Puppets. I mean, he wrote all of the best parts of Master of Puppets.
Yeah.
And this was them kind of coming to grips with it. After that, I mean, there are many who would try to argue that the Black Album is a themed album. I just think it was a bunch of songs put together on an album.
I think that was a reintroduction of Metallica to a larger audience.
And it was a difference in the sound. They pulled away from their thrash roots.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you really want to look at a pure thrash record, Justice is a pure thrash record.
Oh, yeah.
By far, even more so than Puppets. Puppets.
Muppets.
Puppets.
Pastor of Muppets.
Yes, pastor. That is a parody song in the works. We will do it. I could just see you doing your Kermit Muppet dance as the pastor of Muppets. Oh my God, that's amazing. Anyway, Puppets had enough melodic stuff in it that it really doesn't fit into that category of being pure thrash. But yeah, you get a reintroduction with the Black Album. Load and Reload are just different albums. And then you get the covers album.
Yeah.
You get the live album.
Yeah.
Then you get Saint Anger, which is back to the idea of a themed album. Even though the theme didn't sit well with most people, you still have that themed album.
Yeah.
We discussed this a little earlier. Basically, it's a bunch of people falling apart and dealing with addiction, dealing with the breaking down of their unit of togetherness and how they could. I mean, they documented it in a freaking documentary.
They did, and they documented it on accident.
Yeah, very much so on accident, and it became the album really speaks to what happened during that time period. They fell apart and had to rebuild.
Side note,
yeah,
one of the directors of that documentary, the one who is still around, still alive, is the director of the new Ted Bundy film.
And directed and got the documentary Ted Bundy film that came out like a couple months ago.
Yeah.
On Netflix first. Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Which is why Hetfield,
which makes sense with the documentary.
Which is why Hetfield is actually in the new Ted Bundy movie.
Yep.
He's a police officer in there.
He's the police officer that arrests Ted Bundy.
Nice.
Yeah, he's the guy.
I've seen
now I haven't seen the film, but from what I remember, his name is I believe he plays the police officer that does arrest Ted Bundy.
I will ask my wife. She's actually watched it because she's a huge serial killer fan.
Yeah.
But I've seen Zac Efron in interviews when he's meeting people that are other celebrities that he's had like, because he's a pretty genuine like fan of other people.
Yeah.
And he completely gushes over meeting these people.
Yeah.
I would hope that he had a similar reaction to meeting Hetfield.
He actually gave Hetfield incredible props for his acting chops on this film.
It wouldn't surprise me.
He said, he's like, no. He goes, you guys don't realize the talent this guy actually is. He nailed every part of it. This guy is worth his salt as an actor, and that surprised the crap out of me.
They had to use a decent amount of makeup on him though to cover all the tattoos. I know that from personal experience.
Well,
recently.
he was dressed up as a cop, so he's covered all the way to his hands.
Doesn't matter, bro. When I was doing, just recently when I was doing the play that I was doing, the amount of makeup I had to put on my hands and my
makeup.
Neck, oh my God, it was insane to put them. I actually had to use paint and makeup to conceal my tattoos that are visible.
Damn.
Yeah, it was scary. Anyway, and then the last couple of Metallica albums have been very thematic. Death Magnetic, which I believe is probably going to be on your list.
Death Magnetic is on my list,
and Saint
Anger was also on my list.
And yeah, they
Hardwired's a theme.
They went back more to the thematic stuff. Death Magnetic being even more so. But I'll let you.
Well, I mean, they know it works. Death Magnetic specifically is named at, and all of the songs are specifically around some kind of semblance of
redemption,
death in the afterlife.
redemption.
Yeah.
What happens to you?
Yeah,
I know that Lane Staley, specifically the death of Lane Staley and how it continued to affect James Hetfield, specifically was a big motivator for the album.
That is another one that is one that I didn't mention beforehand that just hit me. Black Gives Way to Blue by Alice in Chains.
Okay.
That is a great album. That is a great album overall. Okay,
so let's get back to your list, sir.
All
we
right,
had our Metallica little sidebar.
We had the little Metallica sidebar. Speaking of which, there's another one, Megadeth. I see the...
which one?
The System Has Failed. 2004. So after what happened...
That one I'm not familiar with. The last one that I'm familiar with is the one that... Is it Cryptic Writings? Is that the actual album that song is on?
That song...
Cryptic Writings?
That song, Use the Man?
Is that the song Use the Man?
Yeah, he uses the line Cryptic Writings on the wall.
But isn't Cryptic Writings the album then?
Yes.
Okay, that's the album that I'm talking about then.
Yes. No, actually, well, there's a couple of themed albums.
That's the last album that I am familiar with of Megadeth to any extent. And I actually liked a few songs off of there. Although if I'm correct, that one has the I'm Trying to Write Master of Puppets song on it, isn't it? Or is it on an album sooner? Anyway, we'll talk about that later.
I don't know, but okay,
go on,
so
here's
what I like about
album.
Yeah, here's what I like about that one specifically. It is specifically themed. So, giving you a little bit of backstory on Mustaine and what happened around that time. Mustaine, I believe, lost the use of one of his hands.
Real quickly, is this post Saint Anger or pre Saint Anger?
This is during Saint Anger.
During Saint Anger, okay.
As a matter of fact, one of the songs on the album is legitimately about what the band did to him during the Saint Anger sessions.
Okay, which again, if you want to know, get the documentary.
Watch the documentary, and the song references specifically what happened in the documentary.
And you'll see what's going on there.
Great song, by the way.
I'll have to hear it at some
heavy.
point.
A super heavy and nice beat to it. Like,
okay.
It's definitely outside of the regular scope of Megadeth, too. That's what makes it good. That, not to say that, Megadeth is in any way particularly bad. I know that James doesn't like them.
My opinion is I don't like them. I don't think they're very good. But
okay, so the theme of the album is this. This is during the mid-2000s. It came out in 2004. This is the height of the Iraq War and the Afghanistan wars.
Okay.
The
post 9/11 wars.
The post 9/11 wars.
Got it.
So the album
Mustaine has been known for being anti-war in many of his albums before, and he's very outspoken. Peace sells, but who's buying?
Right.
I mean, that's...
Yeah, totally. He's been anti-war for a very long time.
So go on, sorry.
This is based upon the album itself is based upon the idea that, essentially, and I'm not saying this to be particularly polarizing in any way,
of course,
but this is considering
just in reaction to the album.
Yeah, this is in reaction to the album. This is the theories that seem to be presented within the album. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is very close to when Dave actually started going to therapy in AA and became a Christian. He became a devout Christian at this time. Okay. The opening song starts with Air Force One being shot down over Afghanistan.
Okay, yeah, he's definitely
he goes straight towards. You hear a plane flying, you hear a missile hitting the plane, you hear this thing go down, and then The music starts, and it starts with the newsreel that says the president has been shot down over Afghanistan. It starts, boom. The musicians in the album are great. It's the first album where Dave Ellefson came back after suing the band.
Oh, okay.
It's the first album that has Chris Poland in it for like 10 years.
That one I don't know.
Chris Poland was the original lead guitar player that ended up getting fired for selling a bunch of the band's gear for heroin money.
Okay.
And the drummer is a very prominent jazz and pop drummer named Vinny Colaiuta.
I know
who
him.
played in progressive albums. He played for Beyonce. He played for, I think, the Mothers of Invention at one point. He did.
Okay.
And this guy is just one of the most solid drummers.
Yeah,
this
I'm
is
with
well before time correction being a major thing and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff in digital stuff. So the album is just played masterfully.
Okay, and what's the name of the album again?
The System Has Failed.
Okay. This is one for
themed
people
album.
to if they're metalheads, definitely to check out. I'm gonna have to. I may actually listen to some Megadeth. For those of you who know my hatred of it, I may listen to some. Dearly departed friend who was a huge Megadeth fan, who him and I always used to get in argumental discussions because he loved Megadeth, I loved Metallica.
Yeah.
If there's an afterlife that he can hear me in, okay, sir, I might give a Megadeth album a try. So what's next on your list, sir?
Let's see. Moving on to the more recent stuff. I would say that there's a couple of things to take a look at. I'll go back one. I forgot to mention Black Sabbath. A couple of their albums are great.
I would say Black Sabbath for the most part. Now, are you talking Ozzy years or Iommi years?
I would say Ozzy years
Or not
specifically.
Iommi,
not
Dio
necessarily
years?
well, the Dehumanizer album is definitely a themed album
Now,
with
who's-
Ronnie James
That's
Dio.
Dio. Okay.
The Dehumanizer album is one of my favorite albums without Ozzy.
Okay.
However, there's two of them that I absolutely love. Master of Reality is a fantastic album from beginning to end.
Okay.
And also, the original album Paranoid was actually not supposed to be called Paranoid.
What was it supposed to be called?
War Pigs.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, if you look at the cover of Paranoid, it looks really cheesy, but it's actually a Roman gladiator with a pig for a face.
Oh.
And it's a really blurry picture with nasty trails and stuff. So
I never understood what the picture was. That makes so much sense.
Yes, and the album itself is a politically anti-war themed album all the way across.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes
So
sense.
That makes a lot more sense
And
now.
War Pigs is probably my favorite Sabbath song
It's
ever, period.
it is a misinterpreted, misnamed
That's amazing.
themed album that was specifically about that stuff. So
That makes
just to
perfect sense.
Kind of throw that out there. I
Yeah.
thought that was cool. And then the only other thing that I could think of, there's not a lot of themed albums. There are not a lot of themed albums that I know of more recently.
Yeah.
However, that doesn't mean they don't exist. It means I don't know.
Well,
I
so
think the
that's-
only thing I could think of right out the gate, off the top of my head, is the Black Parade by. Oh my goodness! Why can't I think of their name? The Black Parade by.
I can't either. And
Why can't I
love the
think of
album.
it? And it's one of those post hardcore bands. Let's go back to it. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, we'll move on to that. The next one that I could think of is Dave.
Got it.
Who?
My Chemical Romance.
Thank you.
And I'm going to tell you right now, my wife and my sister-in-law
Yes.
are going to smack me if they listen to this, and the fact that neither one of us could get My Chemical Romance.
You know
because
what?
they are
We're
huge.
throwing a knot at them though, and I am
No,
not.
they are huge. My Chemical Romance. Well,
I am not an
sister-in-law
MCR
is.
listener, but I have heard that stuff, and dude, good stuff.
I actually
Let's
like
be
a few.
real.
I like a few of their songs. Interestingly, the lead singer, you know what he does now? He's a comic book writer. He's a huge comic book nerd.
What?
Like huge.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, huge comic book nerd.
Oh my goodness!
Kevin
I had
Smith
another
has
one.
had him on a show.
Really?
Before, yeah, talking about the comic book stuff. You know that show Kevin Smith had with the big like throne thing that he sat in? We'll look it up.
It wasn't
another time.
Batman
Anyway,
on Batman. It was something else.
something else. But anyway, he's had him on
But
the show
yeah.
a couple of times because he's a big
he had
comic
Carrie
book guy.
Fisher on one.
Yes, he had Carrie
And,
Fisher.
Yeah, it was like almost like a town hall Q&A
Yes,
kind of a thing. It was
yes.
really cool. There was that one, and oh my goodness, there was another one that
There's
just escaped
actually
me.
a couple of recent Fall Out Boy albums.
Okay.
That they did. It was after Fall Out Boy went on a little hiatus for a while.
Yeah.
The guitarist and the drummer joined a super group with Scott Ian and Rob Caggiano of
the Damn Things.
Yes, the Damn Things.
Yes,
You saw them in concert.
I saw them with you, and they were fantastic.
They were fantastic. And after that, Fall Out Boy came, and Patrick Stump from Fall Out Boy kind of did his own personal album, lost a bunch of weight, and then did his own solo album. They came back together and did a couple albums, one of which they recorded. The first one that they did coming back together, I don't remember the name of the album.
Yeah.
But they recorded a music video for every single one of the songs and released it as a film. And it is a solid film all the way through.
Oh, that's cool.
It's got Tommy Lee in it.
Ooh.
It's got Courtney Love in it.
Yeah.
Courtney Love actually guests on one of the songs.
Cool. Okay.
And
I'm down to hear I'm down to hear her on.
It's got Elton John in it too, who also guests on one of the songs. Elton John plays God. Tommy Lee plays the devil. Interestingly enough.
Okay.
They go to.
I'm down to check that out.
They go to hell and to heaven.
That's cool.
It is an amazing.
That's cool.
And again, it's a whole movie that has the video for every single song on the record. Played in a different order than what it is on the record, which is a little awkward.
Okay.
But it's actually a very cohesive record that plays really well together.
Why didn't I think of this? American Idiot by Green Day. That's
actually
a rock opera.
That's actually considered, yes, that's a rock opera, and it's been turned into an actual musical.
Yes.
So you would say that
is also another one that was a debut album, but it was.
I think it's just a collection of punk songs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So what our contention is now is
Anthrax has one too. It's got the song "Fight 'Em Till You Can't" on it. I've listened to that song, that album, beginning to end. I can't remember the name of it right now, but that's a good one too. It's got
I think
it's got like Earth Is on Hell.
I'm starting to have an interesting feeling about this topic. I think this is a topic that we can revisit another time.
Yeah, I think we should keep
because
going.
I think we can get some more information. This is a good starting for the idea of.
We should look up the more modern stuff.
You yourself have put out 3 albums with your band.
Total.
Bands.
Well, yeah, a couple of bands.
Two different bands. You've put out 3 albums total.
Yeah. The first album for the Prylosis material I didn't consider necessarily an album. That was a collection of songs to me.
Rebuilding the Broken?
Yes.
Okay. I can see that.
Moral Insanity was much more planned.
Yes, and more and that definitely has a more cohesive feel.
Yeah.
To the whole thing, because you're kind of all over the place with Rebuilding. Mm-hmm. There's songs that each song has different meanings.
Yeah.
But when you have some serious, heartfelt stuff like Emptiness and Silent.
Yeah.
In comparison to that.
Right.
Torn in Two. It works because it's the same sound, but it doesn't have the same cohesiveness. The Moral Insanity is definitely a cohesive built album from start to finish.
Yeah,
and it
that
works
was something
best.
that we started to plan halfway through the songwriting process. We're like, these songs all tend to work within this.
And
Let's
I think
stick with it.
I think again, your first album in Prylosis worked to introduce the sound of the band and the idea of the band.
Yeah.
The second one I do feel had much more of a concept.
Yeah.
And then your current band with the album that came out for that,
I went practically concept
that's
with
complete concept all the way through.
I did that on purpose.
I would recommend anybody listening to that album, whether you were able to be one of the people that did you actually sell the cassettes?
Yeah, I have sold the cassettes.
So the people that have the cassettes, the people that have it digital, the people that have CDs, because you sold CDs too, right?
We have CDs, we have it out on digital, and we have it in cassette. And honestly, the only real reason why I have it on cassette is because I thought it was fun.
Okay.
But the cassettes are the only medium that has a side A and a side B to it, where I was able to plan, because I did plan a side A and a side B like an album.
Oh, that makes sense. I need to look at that then. I need to see where'd you cut it off at? Actually, just tell me where you cut it off, because I know the album well enough.
Eye of the Storm.
That makes sense.
Eye of the Storm is the cutoff in side A, or the cutoff on side A, and then it moves on to In Control on side B.
That makes sense, because that is kind of the shift of things. Mm-hmm. I like that. And I will say, if you're going to listen to that album, listen to it back to front, listen to the whole thing, because that's amazing. Or front to back, beginning to end. Plug it right now. Plug the info.
The name of the band is Digital Havoc. Thank you, James. I appreciate that. The name of the band is Digital Havoc. The name of the album is called Welcome to the End. It's all over Spotify and YouTube and Google Play and iTunes and all that kind of stuff.
I have no connection to it other than being a fan listening to it. This is Mike singing, Mike writing music, and his band doing the stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much, James.
And
I really do.
I do. I can say it is. I'm not saying the individual songs aren't good. There are some individual songs on there that I really, really like. Oh crap! I can't even think of the name of the one. The slow one. Have You Seen Me? Is that the name?
Have You Seen Me is one that...
Is that the actual title of the song?
Yes.
Because I sadly do not pay attention to the titles.
There's a couple of the slower ones on there.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Okay.
I love that song.
Thank you.
That song is amazing. That song has kind of to me, has a haunting quality to it.
Nod to Carl on that one, by the way.
Yes, I've heard
that. He co-wrote that one with me. And
I've heard. Did I tell you that I had a conversation with him and I was able to pinpoint the songs that I knew he did the solos on? Just
nice.
based on the sound of his guitar and his playing style.
Yeah,
I could tell.
He's very like I've always loved that about him. He's got a very unique tone. He has
a distinctive
really well.
style.
Yeah, I like it.
I can't really compare him necessarily to anybody else, but he has a distinctive style and sound to his music.
Oh yeah,
I could even tell on the Prilosis stuff when you were doing a lead or when he was doing a lead.
Oh yes,
totally different style.
Yeah.
Yours has more of a bluesy feel to it than his does, in my mind.
I tend to, you know what it is I always tend to, I've been trying to break myself of this habit. I tend to end on the root. He's much more explorative, and he also really knows how to play with, like, you know, guitar technique, vibrato, that kind of stuff. He also uses different scales and stuff that I'm not that.
You still rooted
I'm a pentatonic guy. Like,
you're welcome, by the way. But anyway, that's a story for another time.
Thank you.
But anyway, so we'll revisit this discussion of the art of the album at another time. But real quick, before we end, I know that we're going a little long here.
Yeah.
But before we end, I
seems to be a theme with us.
It does. I wanted to at least pop out 5. We won't go into the descriptions of how and when.
Okay.
But we'll do that another time.
Okay.
But 5 albums that personally for you, 5 albums that stood out as important albums, stuff that you still own today, maybe stuff that you would listen to at any point in time, stuff that made a difference in your life. Give me your 5.
Oh my. Okay. Let's see. Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd.
Okay.
Aqualung by Jethro Tull.
Okay.
Evil Empire by Rage Against the Machine.
All right.
2112 by Rush.
Of course.
And Significant Other by Limp Bizkit.
Really?
Yes.
That new metal stuff really hit you.
It did. It was a big influence in the way that I know a lot of people that were actually influenced by that. That's some of the first stuff that they ever really worked with.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I have appreciation for a lot of different types of music and stuff that's well beyond the scope of this. But this is stuff that I listened to in my childhood that really kind of helped influence the way that I write. And don't get me wrong, like, I throw it on my sleeve that I'm very Metallica influenced with my stuff.
Well, you literally have it on your arm that you're Led Zeppelin influenced.
Yes, I do. And I have those direct influences, but there's not a single album that I can listen to from. I can't pick one.
I get you.
So I don't think of them as single albums. Those are just artists' entire catalogs.
I get you.
And that's a different subject matter entirely.
I get you on that. Would you like to hear mine, sir?
Yes.
I'll try to do these actually in order of when they when they hit me.
Okay.
Meatloaf, Bad Out of Hell 2, Back into Hell.
Nice.
Pearl Jam 10.
Okay.
Metallica, Load.
Okay.
And this is the only one I'll explain. That's what got me into Metallica. Like I said earlier.
Yeah.
That's what got the hook into me to get into Metallica.
Yeah, totally.
This is one that's going to throw you. Actually, this one won't. The last one will. Avenged Sevenfold, the White Album. Their self-titled White Album.
I've got to check that out.
That's the one that has Almost Easy. That's the one that has...
really?
Yeah.
So that's the one that came out after the one with after City of Evil, right?
Yes, that's the one that came out after City of Evil. That one has Little Piece of
Evil's
Heaven.
A good one too.
That one has Little Piece of Heaven. That one has almost the entire. There's like 5 singles off of that album.
Cool.
That's a huge album. That's one that got me through some mental problems. And then here's the one that's a little out of the park for you. Blue October, Foiled.
I don't even know who they are.
You know the song "Hate Me." Blue October, Hate Me. That if you heard it,
I'll look it up. I'll look it up.
But that whole album, love every moment of that album.
Cool.
It's kind of it's an alt rock kind of album. Guys out of Texas, Houston, Texas, or maybe it's somewhere in Texas that they're from. But amazing kind of emotional music, and this guy uses it as kind of he did it anyway, uses it as kind of his therapy. Great stuff. But anyway, we will come back another time and talk more about albums. Hopefully you like this episode on it. Now it's time for your telling people spiel, Mike.
Thanks again for listening, you guys. If you want to check us out, you can check us out on Spotify. If you're not hearing us on Spotify, our website itself, we're on TuneIn. We are on Google, thank you. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. That's where you can actually hear us. If you want to follow us and check out more updates, you can check out our Facebook and our Twitter at Xenchron, spelled Xenchron. You can also check out our website at thexennialchronicles.com or Xenchron.com.
Anything you need from us, please feel free to comment on the Facebook page.
Please do.
Please feel free to make any comments on the YouTube page. Like us on YouTube, and there's a little bell icon that gives you the notifications whenever we put something out. Click that bell icon if you like us on YouTube so that you get the notifications. Plus, it makes us look better to YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube likes to see that stuff, that people are actually listening and want to know that the new stuff's coming out.
And if you guys have anything else to say on all this stuff, especially, dude, give us your favorite albums, send us a tweet, send us a Facebook, just comment on our Facebook video itself. That'd be great too, or comment on our YouTube videos. We keep an eye out.
That would be fantastic, and we'd love to hear any album suggestions, things that you feel are complete albums that we may not have touched on or mentioned.
Ooh,
and
yes.
for us to check out and give opinions on.
The more modern stuff too. We'd love to hear some more of that modern stuff.
Please, millennials, let us know.
We know the art of the album is not dead. We need guidance.
We at least hope it's not dead completely. All right. Thank you very much for listening, and we're out.
We're out.
Thank you for tuning in, friends. The journey continues next week.